Hey everyone, and welcome back to The Explainer. We're diving straight into this week's cloud security and AI architecture briefing. Now, for all of you cloud experts, cyber architects, and AI engineers tuning in, just a quick heads up right out of the gate. This summary was actually put together using Gemini Notebook, but absolutely everything we're about to cover is pulled directly from real public sources published on August 14th, 2026. Okay, let's get into it. Okay, so let's dive right into this high-density briefing. Here's our agenda. Number 1, the big 3 takeaways. Number 2, cloud and infrastructure updates. Number 3, cybersecurity and threat intel. Number 4, AI and machine learning. And finally, number 5, recommended media and podcasts. We're keeping this super focused today, strictly zeroing in on architectural trade-offs, security implications, and of course, operational costs. Kicking things off with Section 1, the big 3 takeaways. We're doing a bit of a bottom line up front strategy today, just extracting the absolute most immediate value from this week's news before we get too deep into the weeds. All right, so here are your 3 core warnings for the week. Step 1, you've got to remediate those build runner credentials, literally right now. We are seeing some major supply chain breaches lately, so rotating long-lived cloud keys into short-lived, just-in-time identity tokens, that's completely non-negotiable at this point. Step 2, govern your agentic execution costs. Autonomous workflows are getting incredibly complex, and you absolutely must enforce strict per-task AI token quotas. And Step 3, enforce centralized boundary controls to actively lock down those tenant perimeter blind spots across all your multi-cloud environments. Let's shift gears a bit into the infrastructure domain. Section 2, cloud and infrastructure updates. We're going to take a pretty neutral analytical look at how some new data and control plane configurations are fundamentally rewriting modern architectural blueprints. So looking at these new configurations, there is a super clear architectural trade-off happening here. On one hand, AWS Aurora DSQL is utilizing a Firecracker micro VM isolated control plane. And honestly, it brilliantly eliminates database head node failovers. But, and it's a big but, that multi-AZ resilience definitely comes at the cost of predictable distributed latency, especially when you compare it to your traditional single-node cached architectures. Now, on the flip side, Amazon EKS is now allowing direct API flag configuration. This is huge because it grants you complete tuning freedom for things like rate limits and feature gates. But it also dramatically increases your risk of control plane misconfiguration. You absolutely need strict infrastructure as code guardrails locked in before deploying that. We've got a couple more major infrastructure updates to hit on. First up, Microsoft Entra tenant governance has officially reached general availability. This is a massive win for IT teams. Its centralized controls actively prevent rogue, shadow B2B tenants from just completely breaking your cross-company security policies. Meanwhile, over at Google, the BigQuery data transfer service just expanded its zero-cost ingestion. It natively pulls data into the perimeter, which completely eliminates third-party ELT vendor licensing. Sounds great, right? But the trade-off here is that dumping raw transactional schemas straight into analytical storage pushes all your data sanitization costs downstream. If you aren't careful, that's going to spike your compute slot costs later on. All right, moving right along to Section 3, cybersecurity and threat intel. Because while your cloud infrastructure obviously demands strict internal governance, the external threat landscape targeting those very environments is shifting incredibly fast, specifically toward AI and identity-based vectors. And this brilliantly illustrates the problem. According to the Cloud Security Alliance Top Threats 2026 report, machine identities now outnumber human identities by a staggering 100 to 1. 100 to 1! That massive ratio fundamentally flips our operational security priorities. Basic authentication, it's just not enough anymore. Post-trust session binding and really strict agentic authorization governance are absolutely critical right now for defending your control plane. So what does this actually look like in the real world? Let's trace the timeline of the Team PCP supply chain breach from back in March 2026. At 0 minutes, the malicious SandClock update was pushed to the PyPy repository for the highly popular lit LLM library. There was only a 40-minute window of exposure before it was detected and pulled down, just 40 minutes. But look at the post-attack fallout. A mind-blowing 434,000 CI/CD pipelines were exposed. The architectural impact here is absolutely massive, because just removing the malicious package, that doesn't fix the incident. The malware escalated to root and literally scraped ambient cloud keys and service tokens straight from the runner memory. So you have to completely rotate those credentials and enforce really strict network isolation. Okay, let's pivot now to Section 4, AI and machine learning. We're stepping into the whole AI engineering realm here, where we're seeing inference costs just absolutely plummet, which, of course, brings along some pretty massive new governance challenges. The AI price drops this week are honestly kind of wild. Microsoft's MAI Code 1.1 Flash dropped its inference costs by 75%, adding local CLI and native vision capabilities for processing architecture diagrams. And then you have Google's Gemini 3.7 Flash, which saw a 50% cost drop while offering these new adjustable reasoning depths. Slashing these token prices dramatically changes the game for the economics of automated code review pipelines and agent loops. But, and this is a big warning for you architects out there, expanding vision inputs and autonomous tool execution opens up some pretty alarming new attack vectors for indirect prompt injection. We're talking specifically about embedded image metadata and internal API tool executions. 31 million. Think about that for a second. That is the number of output tokens burned on a single task by an unreleased research version of Anthropic's Claude. It used 60 subagents and fired off over 2,400 shell commands just to improve a mathematical proof for the Riemann zeta function. Now, on one hand, it's an unbelievable display of reasoning for complex search spaces. But on the other, it's a flashing red warning sign for enterprise infrastructure. Complex workflows like this demand strict token budgeting and subagent rate limiting. Without those controls, recursive subagent loops are going to turn into massive, runaway cost spikes in your production environments. Trust me, you do not want that bill. Next on the AI front, OpenAI has expanded its Daybreak initiative. They're now offering dual-tier access, and they just launched the GPT 5.6-Cyber model, which is specifically designed for zero-day vulnerability research. Essentially, this bypasses the default safety guardrails for sanctioned red teams. And sure, while this drastically speeds up patch verification, it fundamentally shifts your enterprise identity and access requirements. You've got to enforce strict zero-trust sandboxes and mandate hardware security keys. Otherwise, you risk compromised developer credentials kicking off uncontrolled local exploitation loops. Now let's contrast two new deployment approaches that are tackling totally different risk profiles. First, there's Meta's Muse Glimmer. It's a 30 billion parameter open-weight model optimized for local edge execution. Running agent loops locally completely zeroes out your outbound LLM token costs, which is great, but it transfers a massive amount of security risk directly to the endpoint device itself. Conversely, Mistral's regional endpoints offer hosted EU sovereign compute. That's fantastic if you're dealing with strict data residency compliance, but you really have to inspect and carefully manage those sub-processor data transfer clauses to prevent any accidental non-EU data spills during fallback processing. Rounding out our AI coverage, Amazon Bedrock just expanded IAM principal cost allocation to their Bedrock Mantle endpoints. So the crucial point is this. AWS essentially just solved the LLM chargeback nightmare for multi-tenant applications. By mapping API calls directly to the calling identity roles, you finally get perfect visibility into your token spend per team, and you don't even need custom proxy wrappers to do it. However, a little caveat, this only works if your application IAM roles are strictly scoped per workload. If you're still relying on shared, generic execution roles, this shiny new billing visibility is going to be completely useless. Finally, wrapping things up with Section 5, Recommended Media and Podcasts. If you're looking to expand your reading and listening rotation this week, we've got a quick hit media wrap-up for you. We've got a really solid lineup of deep dive recommendations this week. The Google Cloud Security Podcast is doing a great job covering real-world AI vulnerability research. Then there's the Enterprise AI Show. Highly recommend this one for separating actual infrastructure cost concerns from all the market hype. Cloud Computing Insider will help you spot architectural lock-in early so you can preserve your multi-cloud mobility. And honestly, Corey Quinn's AWS Community Keynote, it's absolutely essential listening for navigating modern AWS complexity and avoiding some really costly mistakes. Go ahead and take a screenshot of this if you want to save these for later. As we close out today's explainer, I really want to leave you with this overarching, pretty provocative question to consider for your own architectures. How exactly do we balance the incredible speed of autonomous AI agents with the strict boundaries of enterprise security controls? It's really the defining challenge we've been unpacking today. And honestly, it's the exact puzzle every single cloud expert is currently trying to solve. Well, thank you so much for joining this high-density briefing. For more deep dives into cloud, security, and AI insights, make sure you go and subscribe to the YouTube channel at Eyal Estrin. That's Eyal Estrin, at EYALESTRIN. Subscribing ensures you won't miss any of our future highly technical explainers on these critical, constantly evolving architectures. Keep building securely, keep learning, and we will see you next time.